You're standing in a glass lobby. Security walking you out of the building. You built with your own hands. Employees you hired are staring at the floor, too afraid to even say goodbye. Your name is on the door, your name is on the products. And none of it matters right now, because the board just voted you out of your own company. You're 30 years old, and the world thinks your story is over, but it isn't. What happens next is going to invent the most valuable company on planet Earth, and it starts with a boy who was given away before he could even speak. Level 1, the boy nobody wanted until someone did. You are put up for adoption the day you're born. Your biological parents want you placed with college graduates, but the family who initially wanted to take you in backs out at the last second because they wanted a girl. A working-class couple named Paul and Clara Jobs get the call instead, and because they never finished college graduation, the adoption almost falls through completely. Your birth mother only signs the papers once the couple promises, in writing, that you'll go to college one day. You are raised in a house full of tools, because your father repairs cars and fixes electronics in the garage to put food on the table. He gives you a workbench of your own, and by the time you're a bit older, you already understand that anything broken can be taken apart and rebuilt into something better. At school, you're bored out of your mind, so bored that you start to find joy and entertainment in pranks, which leads to you getting sent home multiple times. Teachers don't know what to do with a kid who's sharp and restless at the same time. It isn't until a teacher bribes you with candy to finish your workbook that you finally slow down and start to focus, and once you do, you skip a grade entirely. You end up at Reed College, a small school that costs your parents every penny they saved. Within 6 months, you drop out because it doesn't seem fair to spend every last one of your parents' savings on classes that seem pointless to you, but you don't leave campus. You sleep on the floors at friends' dorm room, return empty Coke bottles for spare change, and walk 7 miles across town every week for one free meal at a Hare Krishna temple. With nothing forcing you to attend, you start sitting in classes that actually fascinate you, and one in particular changes everything. Calligraphy. You fall in love with typefaces, with the space between letters, with the idea that beauty and function can live in the same object. You have no idea yet, but that obsession is about to shape the way every computer on Earth looks and feels. Level 2, a garage, a friend, and a machine. You take a job at Atari mostly because you're broke, and mostly because the ad promises to have fun and make money. Your habits make you a challenging individual to work with, so challenging that your bosses eventually schedule you for the night shift just to keep you away from everyone else. But your friend Steve Wozniak doesn't care about any of that. He's a brilliant engineer who builds circuit boards just for the joy of it, and the two of you have been close ever since you met as teenagers. Woz designs a small computer just to show it off to a hobbyist club, something he never planned to sell, but you see it and your vision tells you a completely different story, a product. You push him to build a real circuit board, and together you sell your most valuable possessions, your van and his calculator, to fund the first batch. You start assembling the machines in your parents' garage, soldering boards on the same workbench your father once used to fix radios. You walk into a local computer store and convince the owner to order 50 units on the spot, even though you haven't built a single one yet. That order forces your hand and builds pressure. You have days to figure out parts, assembly, and delivery, and somehow you pull it off. Apple is born, named after a summer you spent working on an orchard, and the Apple II becomes the first personal computer that regular people, not just engineers, can actually use in the comfort of their home. Within a few years, that garage operation turns into an organization worth over $1 billion, and you become one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the country. Investors who once ignored 2 college dropouts in ripped jeans are now lining up outside your office, and magazine covers start calling you the future of technology. You are still in your 20s, and you already believe you can build a computer that changes what a computer even means. Not just a faster machine, but an object people fall in love with. You start pulling designers and engineers into a separate building away from the rest of the company, telling them they're building something that will put a real impact on the universe. Most of them are clueless about what that even means yet. They just know that working next to you feels like standing near a cliff, thrilling one moment, terrifying the next. Level 3, losing your own company. You pour blood, sweat, and tears into the Macintosh, a computer built around the same idea you fell in love with in that calligraphy class, that a machine should feel simple and beautiful, not intimidating. You push your team brutally hard, telling them that real craftsmanship needs sweat and blood. Macintosh finally launches with a now legendary television ad that makes the entire world still. But the machine sells slower than the board wants, and the tension inside the company you built starts turning into something personal. You brought in a Pepsi executive named John Scully to help run the business side, trusting him the way you'd trust an older brother. Instead, when the power struggle comes to a head, the board sides with Scully over you. That moment makes you doubt every product and every relationship you built over the years. In 1985, at 30 years old, you are stripped of any real power inside the company that carries your fingerprints and brain power on every product. Officially, you still hold a title. In reality, you're a founder with an office and nothing to run. Walking away, you feel like the entire foundation of your identity has been ripped out from under you, in front of the entire world, in the pages of every newspaper in the country. For weeks, you barely leave your house. Friends worry you might never build anything again, and reporters keep asking the same cruel question in different ways. What does a 30-year-old do after losing the only thing he ever built? You don't have an answer yet, and honestly, some mornings, neither do you believe there is one. You could disappear. Instead, despite all the odds against you, you rise once again. The fire and rage of success starts burning within you like never before. Level 4. The wilderness years. You start a new computer company called NeXT, determined to prove the board wrong, building sleek black machines with software so advanced that it will one day become the backbone of Apple itself, though almost nobody knows that yet. The computers are gorgeous, brilliant, and priced so high that almost nobody can afford one. Commercially, NeXT struggles for years. At the same time, you buy a small computer graphics division from a filmmaker for $10 million, mostly betting on the hardware, not the handful of animators working quietly in the corner. You rename it Pixar. For years, it bleeds money with almost nothing to show for it, and you personally keep funding it out of your own pocket, watching your fortune shrink with every quarter that passes. Then, in 1995, one of the most iconic movies in cinema history hits the theaters. Pixar releases Toy Story, the first entirely computer-animated feature film in history, and it becomes a massive success. You take the company public, and the man who was marched out of his own building a decade earlier is suddenly worth more than he ever was at Apple. Meanwhile, back at your old company, things have fallen apart without you. Apple's products have grown boring, its market share is collapsing, and executives are running out of ideas to save it. Level 5. The return. In 1996, Apple, desperate for new technology, agrees to buy NeXT. And just like that, you're back inside the same building where you were once escorted out the door. Ironic, isn't it? Within months, the CEO who replaced your replacement steps down, and the board asks you to take over as interim leader, a role you accept without taking a full salary. Apple is weeks away from bankruptcy when you walk back in. You cut the product line down to almost nothing, killing dozens of confusing models to focus the entire company on just a handful of machines. You strike an unthinkable deal with your old rival Microsoft, taking an investment that keeps the company alive long enough to breathe again. Then you launch the iMac, a translucent, colorful, almost playful computer that looks like nothing else on any store shelf, and it becomes the fastest-selling computer in Apple's history. The company that was one bad quarter away from disappearing is suddenly relevant again. It's crazy to think how life can change in just a couple of years. Steve Jobs' interest in calligraphy is the reason why Apple products are so sleek, refined, and visually unified. Did you guys know this fact, or are you hearing about it for the first time? Tell us in the comment section. Level 6. Reinventing an industry 3 times. With Apple stable, you go after music next, releasing the iPod along with the simple promise of 1,000 songs in your pocket. It reshapes how the entire world listens to music and quietly turns Apple into a brand people are excited about again. Then in 2007, you showcase an invention that has changed how the world works and operates. Even today, standing alone on a stage, you pull a device out of your pocket that is a phone, a music player, and an internet browser rolled into one piece of glass, and you call it the iPhone. Competitors laugh at the price and the lack of a physical keyboard. Within a few years, that laughter turns into an entire industry scrambling to copy what you just built. You follow it with the App Store, handing millions of developers around the world a direct line into people's pockets, and almost overnight, an entire new economy of small businesses and independent creators springs up around a device you built to simply make phone calls easier. Behind the scenes, while pushing every one of these products, you're privately fighting a cancer diagnosis, going through surgery and a liver transplant, appearing thinner at each keynote while still refusing to slow the company down and giving every last second of your remaining few breaths to the company that almost brought you to the streets at one point. You keep the diagnosis mostly private for as long as you can, worried that fear about your health might shake confidence in the company at the exact moment it needs steady hands the most. Level 7. The legacy. In August of 2011, weakened by illness, you step down as CEO, and just weeks later, on October 5, 2011, you pass away surrounded by your family. The entire world stops to notice, flowers piling outside Apple stores on every continent, because the boy given away at birth had become the person who taught the planet what a computer, a phone, and a piece of music could feel like. Today, the company you built twice, once in a garage and once from the edge of bankruptcy, becomes the first business in history to be worth $1 trillion, and later, the first to cross $3 trillion. None of it happened in a straight line. It happened through a birth mother who almost changed her mind, a college dropout sleeping on dorm floors for free meals, a public firing from the company bearing your own name, a decade of building products nobody bought, and a battle with a disease that never let you rest. Looking back, it's hard to imagine that the same restless kid who fell in love with the shape of letters in a calligraphy class would end up designing the shape of the modern world. The boy nobody quite wanted at birth became the man whose name gets whispered in boardrooms decades after he's gone, a permanent reminder that being pushed out isn't always the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the chapter break. You never set out to become the richest man in any room. You set out to make things so good that people couldn't imagine living without them. And somewhere between a workbench in a garage and a glass box you once got walked out of, that's exactly what happened. So here's my question for you. What's the thing you got fired from, rejected from, or pushed out of that might actually be the beginning of your biggest comeback? Let me know in the comments. For more life-changing stories, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon below. And if you enjoyed living this journey of building an empire from nothing, there's another billionaire's rise waiting to be told.